Hi there folks, how you doing? I thought I'd make a start on this revolting thing today. If you haven't seen my previous video on this, this is it's at the moment it's just half of a Spectrum Plus 2A that I was going to say has been previously loved, but honestly, the more I look at it, I don't think any love has been applied to this. It's been pre-abused, I think, is the word I'd use for it. Pre-owned and pre-abused. And it looks like it's been stored in a shed or an attic or something, and damp's got into it, and we've got rusty components and what have you. But I want to start making a go at getting this potentially back into some sort of functioning condition, if that's even possible. And yeah, I'm going to start with the main board. So goal for this video is to strip it out of its case. I'm going to pull all of these socketed chips out, I think. I'll leave the connectors in for now. I'll probably pull the RF modulator because that's revolting. And then I think I'm actually going to wash the board. I'm going to physically wash it because it's full of debris and contaminants, and I don't know what half of it is. I know some of it's rust. And I know rust isn't typically that conductive, but there could be other metal flakes floating about in there as well, and I don't want to just put power to it and end up risking shorting out the board. I could cause myself more problems. So I think, yeah, strip it out, remove all the socketed chips, pull the modulator, and then just let it soak in some soapy water for a little bit. Then I'll give it a wash down with a bit of IPA. Then we'll start looking at the board in a bit more detail once it's a bit cleaner. But yeah, it's when I say abused, if you've seen my last video, it looks like somebody's been pounding on the thing at the top, and the whole case is sort of bent outwards. I think the case is being pulled crooked by a thoroughly vandalised keyboard that's been hit, and I think it's the metal backing on the keyboard that's actually bent. But we'll get to that anyway. But there's more telltale signs that this thing's been abused, because let me see if I can get this to focus. Look at the joystick ports now. If you look at the top one, joystick port 2, that's nice and straight, and it's flush to the board and it's flush to the case. Joystick port 1, that's crooked. I don't know how well that's going to come up. It's actually been pushed backwards and upwards, and all the legs at the back are bent, and I wouldn't be surprised if a couple are broken as well. So maybe it's a bit more visible there. So that one looks okay. That's been abused. That's had joysticks just rammed into it with no care whatsoever. So this has been owned by somebody really heavy-handed. He's got no sort of respect for it whatsoever. So at some point, that joystick port's going to have to come off, and I'm going to have to straighten it up and make sure none of the contacts are broken. But we're getting a little ahead of ourselves. So first things first. Let's get the board out the case. First time doing this. Case screw, not the case screws, the board screws actually look okay. They don't look particularly oxidised. So maybe that's a good sign, but then we might find something really horrible under this PCB, and it might only be good for the parts board. I don't know yet. I'm hoping it's savable, but really don't know. My biggest concern is actually the ULA or the gate array, whatever you want to call it. There's probably 200 connections plus there, and if any of them are corroded through, then it's going to be very difficult, if not nearly impossible, to repair. So that's my biggest concern. Anything else is kind of repairable. Oh no, missed a screw. Anything else is kind of repairable, I suppose. But yeah, is this going to lift out now? Am I missing it? Yep, I'm still missing a screw. One hiding from me, right over there. Any more? Anyone for any more? No, we're free. Okay, we're out. What have we got underneath? Doesn't look bad. It looks like some damp has settled on the gate array, so I'll have to check all the connections later. Looks like there's a little bit of corrosion here, a little bit of corrosion here. I'll try and get close-ups of that and show you what I'm talking about. So around the reset switch there's a little bit of corrosion, and where else did I say there? Whatever that is. What is that on the other side? Oh, it's a little tuning capacitor. I might need to replace that as well. We'll see. Might have a few faulty components there because of damp. Oh, and yeah. That's not looking too clever either. What's that? That is the RGB socket. So that's not great. Might be worth pulling that off actually while I'm here and just cleaning that separately. I don't know. Let's make a start on removing very gently some of these socketed chips, and I don't know how well they're going to be stuck in here, so let's start with one of the bigger ones and just gently lever it with a screwdriver. That feels a bit crunchy. I don't like that at all. Just want to gently get it moving. I just don't want to go in there with the chip puller straight away and start ripping this thing out, because that could come back to bite me. So let's take our time. Just start with the CPU. Oh, that's crunchy. But then they can be a bit like that anyway. Oh, that suddenly popped free. I hope none of the legs have broken. I mean, this is one of the easier to replace chips, if it has, but I still rather not have to. Ah, you see, it's stuck on one side and popped out the other. Oh, don't know about this. That's very crunchy. Let me try. Where is it? A little bit of IPA just to soften up any dirt, maybe get things moving. Be squirty, it'll work. There it goes. I'll just let that soak. In fact, let's just soak all the sockets and chips. Give that a minute. Right, try that. Yeah, about here I'd say the legs are stuck. I really don't want to break it. I'm being as gentle as I can. No, I'm just going to get in with, if you just excuse the camera for a minute, I need to get my head in there and just get right close to it and see what's holding it up. Okay, it's out, and none of the legs broke, so, in fact, none of them have even bent. We got away with that one. That's assuming the CPU's okay. That socket isn't great, so that might be a candidate for changing. I don't know. Anyway, I'm going to continue, so let me try and get a few more out. Crunch, crunch. That's moving. And we're out. All legs intact. Yeah. Big string. Oh, God, big horrible cobweb on that. Next. Oh, look at that. That's moving. I'll have to give that a bit of a rock with the chip puller, actually. It might be. Oh, there we go. All legs. It's all come out. Just the RAM chips now. No, let's not do that. Let's not do that. Let's just get it moving. that's better. Now that should just pop out. Yep. Right, that's all the chips removed. And no damage so far. Sockets are looking a bit crusty, but I mean, they will, I suppose. Yeah, the roar you can hear in the background is my desoldering station. I've actually fitted a new fan to it, and it's running quite... well, it sounds like a Harrier jet taking off, but never mind. As long as it keeps it cool. Anyway, that's not the issue. Yes, I'm going to desolder a few bits and bobs now, I think. And I know I said before I was going to leave the sockets on, but they look so corroded, I think I'm going to take them off and I'm going to strip them down and clean them up separately. I'm probably going to do the same with the reset switch. I want to get to the underneath of it. And that modulator is horrendous as well. So I'm going to take those off and clean those up separately, and then I can be getting on with that while the rest of this is in for a soak. So, let's get into it. Let me see. I think I'll start with power socket. I think for this job, plenty of flux is my friend. Bladder it on there. Right. Has my tool warmed up, matron? Right, so that's a few more components removed, and I've pulled the DC power socket, and I was very careful and I took my time, and I still managed to pull the via out. This very, very fragile board. I mean, it's not the end of the world because I can fix it with a bodge wire, but still, it's damage that I didn't need to make. But that's what happens, isn't it, sometimes? Been a long time since I've done something like that. What else? The RGB socket pretty much fell out. That was easy. That is the mess that was under the RF modulator, and yeah, well, I'll show you the RF modulator itself in a minute. So that's out. The reset switch I've also pulled because that was crusty. What else? I might just take that out as well because I know that's a bit crusty underneath. I don't know. Yeah, so that's where we're up to. I've got a pile of bits now in there as well. So, reset switch, it looks kind of alright-ish on the top, but underneath it's nasty. So that's going to need some separate attention. If not replacing, I'll test it. I don't know. All of these DIN sockets, I'm going to strip them and clean them individually. Oh yeah, the audio socket I've pulled as well because that's looking really quite crusty. So again, I don't think I can strip that, but I can get in it with a bit of contact cleaner, and it's going to be easier for me to clean while it's off the board. The modulator, that's the underneath of it. That looks like it's been pulled off the Titanic. It's horrendous. So I don't know what I'm going to do with that. I'll have a think about that. I might be able to clean it up and paint it, or it might just be easier just to throw a whole new one on. I should have a few spares lying around. In fact, that's probably the route I'm going to go down. But yeah. Anyway, I'm going to put the circuit board into the bath and let it soak for a couple of hours, I think. And on the note of the bath, I'm really not sure what to go for. Whether I go for the deep heat, which is really nice. Apparently it relaxes, restores and revives, which is kind of what we need. Or I just go for the stress relief. And I think this machine could probably do with a bit of that. But, I don't know. I think I'm going to go for the deep heat. I think that's probably the better option for this board. Or am I just being completely stupid now? Alright, I went with the deep heat. No, you're weird. That can sit for a bit. Yeah, this is pretty much seen better days, I think. So that's the top of it, which is pretty crusty, as is the socket. And underneath, it's really no better. That's pretty grim. I mean, I might be able to clean this up if I sanded it down and painted it, but the the actual socket itself, I think it's just a bit too far gone. So what I've got is this, and I've scavenged it from an issue 2 board, and I'm pretty sure this was faulty. In fact, I actually had done a composite mod on it at some point. Anyway, I'm wondering if I can take the guts out of this one and transplant them into this one, and that would work, because they're about the same. I think they're exactly the same size, actually. The spacing on the legs is in the same place, the connections are in the same place. The tuner at the top, the trim pot, that looks slightly different actually, but I'm probably not going to use it anyway. And if I do need to tune it, I can just pop the lid off. But I'm hoping I can gut this and put the contents of it into this. But I'll have a go. I've not even looked inside this yet. It might be complete junk. Where's my screwdriver's gone? Hang on. Yeah, what's in here might be complete garbage, but we'll see what we can do. Let's get the can open. Maybe. Maybe not. That's pretty stuck, actually. Movement. Okay. It doesn't look too bad in there, actually. If that'll focus. So I might be able to strip that board out, clean it up, and get it transplanted. I'll have a bit of a play, and I'll bring you back when I've got some results, good or bad. Progress has been made, so that's the board out the plus 2A. It's come out in a nice one piece, and I need to mount it in there. And the centre pin for the connector doesn't quite line up, so I'm going to have to get a little bit creative, I think. But yeah, I'll see if I can get this fitted in, and I'll bring you back when I've got something to show you. There we go. It's in. It's done. I had to run a little bodge wire inside just to connect the centre pin up, because that didn't quite line up, and obviously the tuning hole isn't going to line up either, but so what? Is that on backwards? Yes, it is. Nope. Was I right the first time? Who cares? It's going on like that. Okay. There we go. That's a bit cleaner and a bit shinier, and it's got the correct guts inside it as well. So that can go back on. And that can be e-waste. One grotty power socket. And if you've ever had a plus 2A or a plus 3, you'll know that these tend to work a bit loose over time, so the slightest knock on the power cord and your computer crashes. But there is a way of tightening up the contacts on it, and I'll show you that now. And while I've got it apart, I'll be able to give it a proper clean as well. So either side, if that'll focus, there's a couple of little springy clips there. You can just very gently, if I can stay in shot, that'd be great, lift those. And I do mean gently, and just push them down. No, it's not going to stay in focus, is it? I'm sorry. Just take your time with it, because if you break them, you're buying a new socket. Which I don't suppose is the end of the world, but if you can avoid it, all the better. There we go. They come apart, so the outer bit will fall out, and you should be able to just lift all of these directly out. And there's all your contacts. And there we go. So they can be cleaned, and they can also be tightened as well. So if you want to tighten them gently, and I mean gently, pair of pliers and just give it a little bit of influence. It doesn't need much. If you give it too much, you're going to snap them and you're buying a new socket. Bit of that, and then I can get in that with a bit of contact cleaner, clean it all up, and then I can just reassemble that socket. And I'll do that with the RGB as well, and that'll be the sockets done. Right, the board's done, and it's all dried, and God, it looks better. So there's still work I need to do on it. So the edge connectors are filthy. Hey ho. What else? It's going to need a recapping as well, most definitely. I need to have a good look at this gate array and make sure all the connections are good on it as well. What else? Yeah, all this hardware needs to be refitted as well. Joystick port still needs straightening up. But I think what I'm going to do now is, I've already washed it down with IPA after its bath, but I'll go over these chip holders again just with a bit of contact cleaner. We'll get the hardware back on the board, and then I think I'm just going to throw some power to it, and we'll just see what it does. I'm not expecting it to work first go, but we'll just see if we get any signs of life out of it, I suppose. Yeah. Oh yeah, this staining, by the way, it is just staining. It is actually clean. I've tried scrubbing it. It's not coming off. I tried some really strong mechanical cleaning, which involved me with a wooden toothpick scraping at it, and it wasn't going anywhere, this. I don't want to scrape any harder with anything else, because I'll just end up damaging the board. So that's stained. I'm just going to have to live with it. But there'll be a nice shiny modulator sitting over it, so it shouldn't really matter. Anyway, let me get the hardware back on this board, and then we'll go for the power test, I think. Right, that's all the hardware back in, apart from the audio sockets, which I'm going to leave out, because if, and it's a big if, this thing works, I wouldn't mind doing an audio mod to it. But it's looking a bit cleaner, it's looking a bit shinier, the modulator certainly looks a lot better. I'm hooked up to the RGB connection. I've got my power cable in, but I haven't plugged it in yet. I don't know. There's about a million things that could still be wrong with this, because them sockets don't look brilliant. But before I go to the trouble of changing them all, I just want to try it and see if it does anything at all. We're just going to run with what we've got for the time being, I think. That power socket, I mean, I've stripped it and I've cleaned it, but honestly, the contacts are pretty corroded on it, so I still might have problems there as well. I just don't know. I'm going to give it a 40% chance that it does anything at all, I think. Okay, God. Right, contact. Bloody hell. Pardon me. Well, I didn't think that'd work straight off the bat, but I mean, it doesn't guarantee that it's working completely, but I mean, that's a picture. Does the reset button work? It's the only input I've got on this thing at the moment. Why, yes, it does. You see, I took the reset button off and I doused it in contact cleaner and worked it back and forth and filled it with the stuff, and it seems to be okay. Wow. Well, I didn't expect that. I thought it'd give me more of a fight than that. That's incredible. Wow. Oh God, I'm made up. Right, we can move forward. And through the power of the camera, it's quite a few days later now, so I'm going to try and continue with this and try to remember where I got up to with it. So yeah, so I've had it booted. That was working, although I've not tested it going past the startup screen, so who knows. I think next what I want to do with this is I'll give it a recapping, because these caps are going to be 30 years old now. I know they've been underwater. I need to clean up this edge connector because it's absolutely disgusting, and I can't imagine anything I connect to that is going to make any sort of connection at the moment. What else? Oh yeah, I want to do an audio mod. So on the +3 Spectrums, you've got an audio socket that goes in at the back there, and it's a stereo socket, and what it does is it branches off into two mono 3.5mm jack cables, and you've got one for record and you've got one for playback, so that you can load and save games via an external excuse me, so that you can load and save games via an external tape deck. +2A, it's got the sound jack, but it's output only, so you can hear the computer sounds. That's it. Or you can save to an external tape deck if you want to, but you can't load in. There is a mod that we can do to correct that, so we'll be doing that as well. And I think that's as far as I need to go with this board. No, it isn't. No, there's something I found actually, and there's an issue with the board right there. Let me just see if I can zoom you in a little bit. Right, hopefully that's focusing okay, but you'll see there, between those two chips, it's marked C53, and there should be a capacitor there, and one's been clipped out. So I had a look on the service manual, and it doesn't mention it at all. I had a look inside my other Plus 2A, which is an identical board revision to this, and it does have a capacitor there. In fact, it's got a 330 picofarad capacitor. And I've gone around it and followed the traces and gone around it with the meter, and what it's doing is there's a clock signal that comes from the gate array to the processor via a resistor. Now, before it gets to the resistor, it branches off and it goes into this chip here, where it goes through a NOT gate, and then the clock signal is then outputted to the edge connector at the back. And the point of the capacitor here is it's a decoupling capacitor for that logic gate. So that's why it's right next to the chip, in fact. So it goes from the input of the NOT gate and ground, and it's just a decoupler, that's all it is. I don't know why that's been clipped out, because there's the remains of some legs on the board. So there was obviously a part fitted at one point, and it's been removed. So I'm going to have to kind of guess as to why that's been removed. And the only thing I can think of is maybe it was a faulty part and it went short circuit. And if that had happened, then it would ground the clock signal. Well, the computer's not going to run if that's the case. And clipping it out would fix that problem. And while it is only a decoupler, it wasn't necessarily stop the signal from getting to the edge connector. It could mean that anything plugged into that uses that clock signal could be a little bit temperamental. So I am going to replace that capacitor. It's interesting though. My other Plus 2A does have a capacitor in there, but it's not on the schematic. But for the Plus 2B, it is in the schematic. So make of that as you will. I don't know. There's obviously something wrong with the schematic. Anyway, I'm waiting for that part to turn up. I don't have it yet, but it shouldn't, in theory, stop the computer from running, so I'm just going to move on regardless. When that part eventually turns up, I'll fit it, but as I said, I don't have it yet. So I think next job is a recap. So let's pull those out. Nice fresh caps in, so let's continue and let's have a look at these edge connectors because they're a bit grotty. In fact, let me zoom in a little bit and I'll show you what I mean. You can see where the dust settled outside the case. I'm hoping the connectors are still under all that mess, but I guess we'll find out. Let's start with just a pencil eraser. I'll just give this a rub. Let's try and get the heavy stuff off first. Yeah, this might take some cleaning. Okay, do you know what? I'm going to work on this a little bit off camera, just so I can get really in close to it. I'm going to use a rubber, I'm going to use a little bit of contact cleaner and a cloth. And I'll bring you back when I'm done. And done. So hopefully they should make a better connection. They are pretty corroded. When you get it under some magnification, you can really see it. But yeah, they're a bit shinier now. I just hope I get a good connection off them. Fingers crossed. You can see in places the copper's sort of coming through underneath, but really nothing I can do about that. It's an improvement, but it's not perfect. It's the best I can get it. Okay, on with the audio mod, I suppose. That's over here, and it's a very simple one. All I need to do is, if you see that trace running between the two pads, so you've got three there, the one at the top, that's the common ground, and then the left and right channels are connected together, and the channel on the left, let me get something to point with. Yeah, so that's the common ground. That pad there runs all the way off to the audio output circuit, but it's also tied to this pad here. So what I need to do is cut this trace, which will isolate this channel, and then I'm going to run a bodge wire all the way from there right down to, if I can find it with the camera, here, and it's going to go to the negative lead of this capacitor. And that's it. That's all I need to do. And then my +3 audio lead will work, and it will allow me to load games in from an external source. So I'll just do that quickly. I'll bring you back when it's done. There we go. One audio mod completed. And it doesn't need to be any more complex than that. So it can go back in its base, this now. And oh, look at that. I've washed it. All the rust staining's gone. So this can go back in here. Lovely. And that's the bottom half of the computer done. And I'm not even going to joke about that being at the halfway point, because we're just so not at the halfway point with this computer. But that is a massive step forward, I think. So let me just get this buttoned in. I remember in the last video I said what I'd bid on was a +2 grey Spectrum, and then this had turned up. Well, I thought, well, you know what, I will go back to the seller. I'll just let him know. And I'm not really concerned, but I thought that would be the courteous thing to do, is to let him know, just in case he had somebody else who was waiting on this, maybe, or he'd had a complaint from somebody else. It just gives them the fuller picture, doesn't it, I suppose. And before I contacted him, I looked at the advert again, and it said Spectrum +2 grey case. And then the pictures I looked at were of this. So somewhere I've got it into my head that I was looking at a completely different computer, and it was in fact this. The advert was misleading. It did say Spectrum grey case, and still does. But yeah, the photos were of this. So I was convinced. In fact, I have clear memories of looking at those pictures and seeing a grey Sinclair Spectrum. So I don't know, what's that called when you've got a clear false memory or something? Is that the Mandela effect or something like that? Anyway, I haven't bothered contacting the seller because he has, albeit with a slightly misleading ad, sent me exactly what I paid for. So it doesn't look like there was too much of a mistake made. Where I got it in my head that I was looking at different pictures, I don't know. But then I was looking at a few different computers online that day, so I've just confused myself probably. That's probably all it is. So yeah, that's one mystery less, I suppose. Okie dokie. I think I'm done with this. I was tempted to take this joystick port off and see if I could straighten it up a little bit, but I'm going to see if it works first. I'll test it, and if there's nothing wrong with it, I'm tempted just to leave it alone. I don't know. Yeah, looking at the shape of it, I wouldn't be surprised if I got a couple of broken pins, but we'll find that out anyway. The less I have to strip off the board, the better, because every time you do that and you're putting heat into it, especially with these that are a little fragile, you run the risk of damage. In fact, I did do some damage when I took the power port off. I had to run a bodge. It's fine now, but yeah. I think what I'll do now is I'm going to put power to it again. I'm going to try, because I've got no active working keyboard at the moment, so I don't want to plug the one in that came with it just yet until I've looked at it properly. I'm going to plug in me div MMC, and I'm just going to see if I can get the computer to respond, because at the moment all we've got is a startup screen and we don't know if it works any further than that. So I'll get set up and I'll point the camera back at it once I've done that. Okay, we are plugged in and powered up, and yeah, I've got a nice clear picture. I have no keyboard, but I do have a Master System control pad plugged into the socket, so that is a lovely, lovely crisp clear picture. That, I don't know how well it's going to come out on the camera, probably not very well, but that is really a good picture. What have I got that'll doesn't need a keyboard? Not sure. See if anything loads, I suppose. Let's try Alchemist. Yeah. Okay, that's running. I need something I can play where I can just start it with the joystick, and I'm trying to think. Ah, this might work. Oh, it's instantly crashed. Now, that could be down to just an incompatibility with this game. Let's try something else. Or it could be that missing capacitor that's causing problems with me loading things from the MMC. Oh, I don't know. What's Agent X? Press a key. Well, I can't do that. Have I got anything that would show off the 128K sound? Something that'll drive the AY chip, maybe? I don't know. Ah, there we go. So Target Renegade loads, and yeah, the AY chip's working just fine, so there we go. I think that's about as far as I can go with the testing for now, so I'll probably cut this video here. Well, that's a really positive start, I suppose. I'm probably not going to go any further in this video. The only thing I am going to do is, this is the top half, obviously with a very crusty tape deck and a very bent keyboard. I'm just going to take the keyboard out and just see how much this case flattens out, because that's really got a bend to it at the moment, and I think the thing that's bending it is the keyboard. So I want to at least just take this out for now and just see if it'll start to spring back into shape a bit, maybe. I don't know. Let's just undo it. I'm expecting some damage here, actually. Oh, I can, yeah. It's pulling away from the case as I'm unscrewing it. Can I get a screwdriver in there? Just about. Lovely. Right, that should be free. Yeah. Oh yeah, that's been hammered on, hasn't it? Yeah, look at the state of that. Okay. And what have we got there? A couple of broken tabs. I'll glue those in. The case is still a bit banana-like, but I'm hoping that might flatten out. If it doesn't go on its own the next few days, I might need to put a bit of heat into it, maybe, and just put a bit of heat and a bit of weight, and I might be able to just straighten that out a little bit. I'm kind of hoping. We'll see. We'll see. I'll probably leave the tape deck in it for now. I don't think that's causing any sort of bend to it, but yeah, that's crooked. Okay. So I think my next job is going to be straighten out and see if I can repair the keyboard. Hopefully there's not too much damage other than the bend, and hopefully it's just the back plate that's causing it. Try and straighten out the case. I'm hoping that'll sort of settle back into its original shape now that the tension's off it with this, but I don't know. If not, I'll have to put some heat into it. But that's for another video, so I'm going to call this one here. I think we've made good progress. We've got a working board. I'm a bit limited to me testing at the moment, but so far I can't find any issues. There is that missing capacitor. I will fit that once it turns up, but it's not really critical to the functioning of it. It just might cause problems for things plugged into the expansion port with that missing. I don't honestly know. Maybe it was chopped out at the factory. Maybe they didn't need it. I don't know. Anyway, I'm rambling. So, yeah. There will be more videos on this when I get the time. But for now, I will say thanks as always. Have a good Christmas. Don't forget to water your plants. And I'll see you on the next one. Bye.